Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about the questions people ask in the comments of the free Warden videos, where I talked a little bit about the first impression of the Warden as a damage dealer, healer or tank. So let's get started. First question is, like, what's different between Veil of Blades and Sleet Storm? So basically, as I mentioned previously, they both provide the same damage mitigation buff, right? Major protection, if I remember correctly, so it gives you 30% damage mitigation. But now, when you activate Veil of Blades, it will stick to the ground, which means is when you move out, it will still stick to the ground there and you will not get the damage mitigation anymore. Sleet Storm, it sticks on yourself. So when you activate it and you move, it will move along with you. So that's why I said this will buff, especially like huge groups, quite a lot, because they just can get 30% damage mitigation. Sure, it will have a cap on, maybe like probably 6 players, I really hope so. Otherwise it's just too strong. That's why I said they should just make it probably similar to Nightblade ones, so it sticks to the ground. Or just maybe reduce, like instead of major protection, only give minor protection or something like that. Because you know that one of the Warden skills already, I think, gives minor protection. So you stack Sleet Storm and the other skill, you get 38% damage reduction all the time. That's just way too much. People are already not dying, so it will just make things more difficult. Next question. Here we have, like, just to paraphrase a little bit, he was asking why, like, he said, like, stamina is viable in trials, like, why do people think it's not viable? So that's probably also a little bit my fault why this happened, because people see me playing only Magicka builds and I keep saying, like, stamina is not good in trials. Whereas that is true, there is also something you need to know, like, I always kinda think about trials and endgame. However, if you don't care about leaderboards, stamina builds are totally fine in trials. That's what people seem to misunderstand. If you have a stam build and a Magicka build, like when the stamina builds, good players can still do more damage. It's just like Magicka for myself, and that's why I also keep repeating it. It's just easier to survive on, because you have harness Magicka, you will die a lot less. Stamina in general is harder to play, because you don't have huge shields, like, you just die faster, that's the main reason. And another thing is, you don't have that much AoE damage, that's another thing. But, is it viable in vet trials? Sure. Like, if you're not aiming for the top leaderboard score, you can run as many STEM people in your group as you want. If you have a perfect STEM group composition with like 3 or 4 STEM builds, and each one of them wears a support set, like Night Mother's Gaze or Thunder's Flame, they will probably even do more damage. The only thing that is, like, can they manage to die less than Magicka setups? If yes, then go with it. I mean, there is not a reason to not allow stamina damage dealers into the group. It's just, I keep saying that because I always want to aim for the top leaderboard score. And that's why I say, like, stamina is just not as competitive as Magicka setups there. But in all other, like, normal trials, or even in vet trials and in dungeons, 4-man dungeons, everywhere, you can run as many stamina people as you want, as long as they know how to play the game, right? That's the thing. Because there is good stamina players out there, and they're fucking pissed because nobody takes them anymore. Yeah, anyway. I mean, same thing will happen with the Warden, kinda, I guess. But we will see how it turns out. Maybe somebody will come up with a really nice build. Next question. Why don't all classes skills have a magic and stamina morph? So, this is kinda... well... So Zenimax, like back in the day when the game came out, you have to understand, the game was not made for stamina setups. In fact, basically what they planned back then is all class abilities were magic abilities. There was no stamina abilities whatsoever in the magic skill, like in the class skill trees. All weapon skill trees, like kind of are based off weapon damage. Like it was just fucking confused. I'm not even sure like if I can explain this here. Like even impulse, for example, scaled off weapon damage because it was in the weapon skill tree and all. Like it was fucking confusing. So they slowly started creating stamina morphs and all that kind of thing. And yeah, it just, I mean, I could fucking talk about that maybe 20 minutes or more, but whatever. So the reason is why they don't choose a lot of things. Like the Warden is set up like this. You basically have, how should I say this? The pet tree is your damage tree. So the Warden is set up for the pet tree, damage tree. Then you have the healing tree with all those flower power thingies. And then you have the ice tree, which kind of should be a tanky skill tree. So in the animal's companion tree, there is quite a lot of stamina morphs actually. Like the bear ultimate has a stem morph, the cliff racer has a stem morph, the belly netch has a stem morph, the Hajimota has a stem morph. The only ability that does not have a stem morph is actually the bee swarm or whatever it's called, which kinda sucks because we all know stamina lacks AoE, and actually if they had made one of those magical morphs of the bee swarm into a stamina morph, the one that spreads out, it would have helped the Warden tremendously of becoming a very strong stamina setup. So I'm kinda a little bit sad there they didn't change that, but we will see. I mean, PTS is still to come and we will see what people come up with. Basically, so yeah, in the other things, I think they say, well, does it make sense to give them a stamina morph? They were probably not sure or didn't really care, or they first said no, it doesn't make sense because like the tank wants to have magic abilities to be able to sustain blocking with his stamina, and in the healing tree you don't need stamina skills because all the healers are magical setups, mostly. It's probably the reasoning behind. Next question. Is there a spammable DPS like surprise attack on the Warden? Yes, there is. The Cliff Racer, like the Cliff Racer comes down from there, is a spammable, undodgeable attack. There is a stamina and a magica morph. That's gonna be pretty strong in PvP because it's a ranged, undodgeable attack. Next thing, like it's more like a statement. Stamina Warden will be the dominating class in PvP. I don't think this is true. It will be very strong, that's for sure. And it will take time to get the perfect setups together. But yeah, I do think it will be a pretty strong setup, that's true. In the end, you know, all classes kind of perform good in their own way. Not like, sure, maybe if you are a stem DK, you're really strong, like you have a lot of damage and you're tanky. On a magic Templar, maybe it's harder to DPS, more easy to heal, kind of that setup. The Warden, I think, will be able to do everything pretty well in PvP, kind of like tanky setup, heal setup, or damage dealer setup. And yeah, people will come up with a lot of interesting builds, I'm pretty sure. I have a question about the Mastram Arena. Will Warden do fine there? I do think, yeah, it will totally do fine. Mastram Arena is more about that you know the mechanics and the spawns. If you know that, it will be pretty easy to actually go through Maelstrom. Also keep in mind, Mastram Arena is balanced around 300 champion points. With Morrowind we will have 630 champion points. So your character is way stronger than intended for the difficulty of Mastram Arena. So it will be pretty easy to complete it. Maybe not Magicka Sork level easy, but it will be pretty easy. Basically, he's saying like it doesn't need to be best DPS or best heal, as long as it's kind of a good supporter class. And I think that's kind of true. In the end, it will perform like, it will not be a stem DK for tanking in PvE. It will not be a Magicka Sork, like in terms of damage output in PvE, but you can do everything. Like you literally can do everything on any class. People are just not used to kind of out of the box setups or when like people get scared when they group up in a, let's say in a daily, like, oh you're a Magicka DK healer, well nope, like we don't want you, go away. It totally works. I mean, there is not the problem. People just have not the right mindset, right? They're like, oh, you're not the Magicka Temple healer, well fuck you. That's why you need to find a good guild, friendly people that you can play along with and have fun together. If you show them that you can heal on a Magicka DK, then why wouldn't they play with you? The other people just don't know and they're afraid something will go wrong. So yeah, I totally agree. Like, it doesn't need to be the best damage dealer. I do think like when it can be a off tank or a second healer, it will already like have a really good purpose. Then people will figure out really good damage builds at some point. Maybe it's not gonna be the top DPS, but it will definitely be viable. Basically saying no repentance, no blessed shards, so no healer. I do think this is, well, partially true. I think it is easily possible to sustain without spears in wet dungeons or like normal trials. However, in wet trials, the tanks usually rely on shards. However, we all know, like, if you have a group that is playing or aiming for a certain setup that is not the meta, then you probably also can make it work without. It's just, at the moment, like, the spears are just a no-brainer. Like, why not give people back 30% of their stamina? Especially if you have stamina players. Like, in a full Magicka group, if, like, people keep forgetting that frost tanking is a thing, like in wet dungeons. If you tank with a frost stuff and you only have Magicka damage dealers, you don't really need repentance, you don't really need blessed shards. Sure, it would be nice. Maybe you have a Stamina Templar DD or a Magicka Templar DD that can then run repentance or spears. That's what I like. When I run on my Magicka Templar, I always have the spears there. So it's not really a problem like if we didn't have a Templar healer. So you just need to kind of think like that. Then we have another question basically saying like it will just be like a DK Nightblade or Sorc healer. It will just not be a Templar healer. Like I said previously, this is kinda true. However, again, if you have a certain setup, I don't think it is necessary that it has to be on the same level as a Templar healer. It has really strong healing skills. Like I said, when you have a Magicka Templar damage dealer or even like a tank in your group, he can provide people with spears or some repentance. It's just a question of your setup. Again here, the main thing is again, are people willingly to take a Warden healer into the group? That's a good question. Random groups, maybe not, but if you play with friends, and you should play the game with friends because it is a MMO, it's not a solo game, then I don't think this will be a problem, because they will trust you. Then we have somebody saying like Stem Sorc has been quite a while underpowered till they buffed it. Same thing is probably gonna happen with Stem Warden. This might be true again. We will see when the PTS drops how the Warden will perform. And like in the Homestead PTS, Zenimax actually changed quite a lot of stuff according to player feedback. So if we give them enough good reason to change something, they actually might be willing to change it. So we will see. Maybe we already can fix that kind of problem or like imbalance on the PTS. Then we have somebody basically saying that it could replace the second healer and off tank like together. I mean, technically, or maybe if somebody figures out a really good setup, maybe you could run with one healer and then the off tank is kind of off tank healer. That might be possible, but again, keep in mind this will be very resource heavy on you. So you need to kind of figure out a good way to manage your resources. But is it possible? Definitely yes. We just don't know yet how it will perform. But it won't take too long to figure out because people will play like crazy on the PTS and then we will see if something like this is possible. You also have to see the Warden has really strong heal over times. The Templar, sure you have healing springs and that kind of stuff, but if you can add another ability on top of healing springs that also is a healing over time effect, it actually could be very like you could get a lot of crazy healing output. Maybe you don't need 2 Templar healers then, you could go with a Warden. Can provide you with the damage mitigation, extra health and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely gonna be a thing. Would you like to see more of those kind of videos so people actually see the reasoning like behind of what I do say in certain situations? If yes, maybe leave a comment down below. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.